right, welcome back to the PCC podcast. Today we have a spicy one because we're going to be talking about a really, really hot topic. We actually got some really good questions from you guys on this topic, and we're excited to just kind of break down our perspective as coaches, people who are working with a lot of clients who are curious about this topic or have kind of taken the deep dive into this topic itself. So we're going to give you our take and the honest truth, whatever direction that takes us. So that topic is GLP-1s. So Ozempics, semaglutides, tirzepatide, I think, is another one. Rybelsus, another one. So all of the injectable oral GLP-1 receptor agonists. And we're going to talk about the do's, the don'ts, the must-knows for our clients and for you if you're curious about this topic. So I guess let's start with this, and like anyone can kind of take this and run with it. Like, just what are they and what is the mechanism? Because I think that's even something that's kind of misunderstood.
Yeah, I think people first and foremost can either have a really strong positive opinion about these or a really strong negative opinion about these. And I just want to say disclaimer right off the bat, and I think we can all agree, we are not promoting nor against. This is just more so factual and research and what we know as, professionals here. But GLP-1, right? Glucagon like peptide 1. Yes, I looked that up. I did not know what it stood for. Glucagon like peptide 1. But what I do know is it's a natural hormone that your body produces on its own, right? So it's not something that is foreign to your body. Your body naturally produces it, right? And it responds and produces it to food, right? So it's going to help you with anything like hunger levels, fullness levels, your stomach feeling full, but also it regulates blood sugar, right? And it slows down your belly emptying, so it stays fuller for longer. So your body's producing this already. You give yourself a GLP-1 and it mimics this hormone. So it has been a game changer for things like making people feel fuller for longer and also managing diabetes.
Yeah. I agree with you. There's not a lot of middle. There's I'm all for it, and like I'm the GLP-1 doctor, and all my clients go on this, or like I hate it and we're super against it. And I'll be honest, like I started in the hate it bucket. I was like, I just feel like people are going to misuse it and abuse it. And there's definitely people that do. But, as coaches, we do have clients that are on these or considering these. So we have to, really be able to be in the middle and say, like, what are the true pros and cons? But Rachel, I jumped in, my bad.
Oh, no, you're fine. I interrupted you. But no, 100%. I think we can all agree. It's hard to find the middle ground there. But I, like you, Marissa, was more on the no side of things at the beginning and definitely have learned I just wanted to get more education about it and understand the true mechanism behind it. And it really does have a lot of great benefits. And like you said, Julia, like so many people are seeing positive benefits from it. But I think half of our discussion today will kind of be, okay, for people who are down that journey, what are things you have to focus on to ensure that you aren't seeing the negative side of using it as well? But yeah, just to kind of touch on some of the mechanism things again, as you said, Julia, it kind of stimulates insulin secretion. And since it is already produced in our body, we know that it suppresses hunger, but it also acts on the hypothalamus. I always say that word wrong, and promotes satiety. So it is going to reduce our hunger. So when our hypothalamus is communicating with our body to let us know full, hungry, it is reducing the appetite and increasing the satiety levels. So
okay, that's super helpful because I like the number one thing that I kind of look at when I'm talking to a client of like, is this something you should consider or not, is I've heard so much about how it reduces people's food noise. So like the amount of time they spend thinking about food, which like can actually be like a really big quality of life drag for some people, especially with like disordered eating tendencies and things like that. And so I was like, where in the mechanism is that? Because like I haven't done that deep dive of research that y'all have. And the link to the hypothalamus, I'm thinking, is probably where that is, where it connects to the brain and then to how we're thinking about food. Is that right?
100%. Yeah, I was very interested about that as well. I'm like, give me the psychology here. But on top of that, it also just like slows down gastric emptying. So that's going to keep us fuller longer anyways. But yeah, it's a very interesting drug.
Okay. So where are you guys seeing this with your clients? Like, are you seeing that your clients are like more on the curious but haven't like talked to their doctor about it? Or are you finding that like your clients are like already using them when they're coming into the program, or are they like more on the hesitant side?
Yeah, I've had kind of a varying range. Obviously, a lot are curious, or maybe their doctor suggests it and they're like, what do you think about this? I've had clients who have seen success with it in the past and then came off of it, regained the weight, and now they're trying to do it naturally. So, one
Mm.
thing that we kind of didn't touch on yet is we talked about what it does do and what it does do for your body and for weight loss in general, especially with intense cravings and emotional eating and all of that. But kind of just touching on when I share with my clients who are curious about it, I always like to say what it does not do, right? It
Mm.
doesn't teach you the habits. It doesn't teach you how to make these results last, because when you come off of it, because it's not a lifelong drug, especially if you are somebody like a female who wants to conceive or you get pregnant or all of that, which we'll touch on, you have to come off of it, right? And it doesn't teach you how to eat. It doesn't teach you how to balance your hormones. It doesn't build muscle. Actually, oftentimes makes you lose muscle. It doesn't teach you how to manage stress. All of these things are things that makes your results sustainable. So that's typically when someone comes curious, I always like to share, if you come on it and you're successful, just know when you come off of it, you still have to do the work, because it doesn't fix that root cause. But I do try and share what it can do and what it can't do.
Yeah, I think that's a really great perspective because, like you said, I think so many people are just bought into the quick fix aspect of it, but not understanding the education behind you still have to maintain the protein intake, the weight training, making sure you're staying hydrated because at the end of the day, it is suppressing your hunger. And one of the biggest things we're seeing is people so severely under eating. And at first, especially in those first couple of weeks when people first start and they're extremely nauseous, have food aversions, don't want to eat at all. And that's really the most important time to ensure that we are still fueling our body, even if it does feel challenging. But yeah, I agree. Just like Julia said, I've had some clients. I have a client who is on it right now. I haven't had anyone come in that's already been on it, but I have a client who has PCOS and lots of inflammatory markers that decided to get on it. And we're just really, really focusing right now on ensuring that we're eating lots of protein, fiber, healthy fats, and kind of having okay, well, we have to make sure we're at least eating this much daily, as well as continuing to focus on the strength training.
Yeah, totally. I think on my end, I've really mainly just had the conversations around curiosity around it, but I have had a couple people like from those conversations do decide to go forward with it. I think the thing that I really just try to be cautious of is like, I mean, like you guys have been saying, like coming to this as like a quick fix solution or like a magic pill from the standpoint of the person feeling like they're broken or like they can't see results without it. Like if we're ever in that headspace, I am typically pretty stern about like, we're not going to make a decision from this headspace because you are capable, right? So like, let's work on the self-belief piece first, because if you are doing that like groundwork and you want to be on the drug, then absolutely let's do it. And I support you. But if you're doing it because you feel incapable of sticking with the work, being capable of making lifestyle or habit or psychology changes on your own, like that is where I think it can be dangerous, because then we shunt all of our power into the drug and we say, this thing is going to fix me and I can't fix myself. I'm broken. And that's a really dangerous place to be psychologically. So I think that's just one like hard line that I don't cross.
Yeah, because regardless whether you are on a GLP-1 or not, you still need the foundations, right? You still need to be eating enough protein. You still need to be working on blood sugar balance. You still need to be strength training and getting in movement, quality sleep, and stress management, right? Those habits don't just go away, right? It's not something that replaces those habits.
Yeah. So can we go a little more into like why those things? Like why are they so important, especially for people who might be on a GLP-1?
Yes. So like the psychological aspect of things, and as well as the like day to day, making sure we're eating enough protein and whatnot. And
Yeah, like just like why, because people might not put two and two together. Like, why do we need those base habits when we're on the drug?
yeah, 100%. So, I mean, strength training, a lot of it comes down to and protein intake, the muscle preservation. Apologies for the noise. But,
You're good.
but there is obviously rapid weight loss a lot of the times when you're on the drug. And ultimately, what we're seeing is there was, and I can't quote this, I have no link, but there was a study that I read at one point saying that if you are not eating enough protein and you are not strength training, you can lose the weight you're losing, up to 2/3 of it is muscle mass, not just fat. So ultimately, that's going to affect not only current you, but future you, because people are also seeing bone mineral density issues, and it's just going to impact obviously the muscle that you're able to carry, but it's crucial in ensuring that we are able to continue building on what we're working on with as coaches. Like, we have to ensure that you have a protein minimum, that you have what I've seen with some people is, hey, if I went from training 5 days a week to, a lot of the times when you're on the drug, you might feel more exhausted. You're not eating as much. You are more tired. You're not recovering as well. We might pull down to 3 days a week, but ensuring that we're still focusing on the quality of the training and the quality of the protein to ensure that we are still able to maintain the mass is the biggest thing, because people are seeing, like I said, so much muscle loss while they're on the drug if you're not kind of nailing everything.
Yeah, well, even like the sleep and stress management habits, right? Like, I always go back to quoting this one study where it's like they're comparing the effects of sleep quality or duration on muscle versus fat loss. And even like take the drug out of it. Like, if you are sleeping 5 hours a night instead of seven, like the difference in the amount of body fat that you lose versus muscle in a cut is like really significant, that you're going to lose more muscle when you're sleeping less. And so again, it's like those are foundational habits that, like, independent of the drug, like you could be still losing the wrong kind of weight and then putting yourself kind of in a metabolic hole post weight loss. Add the drug in, now we're eating, probably 500, for a lot of people, like unregulated 500 calories a day, right? And just like not really getting any nourishment in, then they're that much more susceptible to losing muscle mass across the board.
Yeah, definitely a lot of muscle loss, like we had said, but also a couple of other things that firsthand I've seen, my clients and even like my husband's clients who are on, the GLP-1s, a lot of nausea, a lot of fatigue, and then gallbladder issues. I don't know specifically the research behind the gallbladder issues, but it's really prevalent. And then just a lot of long-term disordered eating habits that continue after the fact, just from under eating for so long. But back to the sleep and everything like that, that we kind of noted, independent of our GLP-1s, like we said, that's the quote that I use, is like, sleep is the number one underrated fat loss tool.
Oh yeah.
So we love that.
What about constipation? Like, because slowing gastric emptying, like a lot of times we have clients that are coming in with constipation issues already. So like, where does that come into play? Or have you guys seen it?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
Like, slowing the gastric emptying, right, means your food stays in your belly longer, it stays in your intestines longer, and then it slows your digestion, and then it's going to be sitting there, so you're going to have fewer bowel movements, first of all, because what comes in comes out, and if you're eating nothing, then you're not really going to be pooping. And then your stools are going to be harder, and the little constipation nuggets, because it's sitting there for so long. So definitely a lot of constipation, a lot of discomfort and cramping from that, specifically Ozempic.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I've seen as well. Lots of on top of the nausea and constipation, also people experiencing like diarrhea as well. So of course, increasing fiber, ensuring that protein and fiber are our main focuses, is going to be one of the most important things to ensure that we are still moving, getting some bowel movements in as regularly as possible.
Yeah, that's a big one. Okay. And then I guess like population wise, so there's a couple different like population conversations to be had, right? Because GLP-1s are marketed from medical companies, I believe, towards clinically obese, insulin resistant, and even now PCOS is getting some attention from it. But then there's also obviously people who just like kind of find it and buy it third party or on their own or through other companies that are now replicating the formula. So I guess like one question I would have is how do we feel about GLP-1s being marketed in like the influencer driven spaces, social media, for just general weight loss compared to the populations that it was originally intended for?
Well, I think it's challenging, honestly, because that's a that's a hot topic question. But
Yeah.
no, I mean it really is. I'm like, whew. But it's hard because I think there is just such a lack of education surrounding it. And it is one of those things. Luckily, there is such a supply of it. The people that need it aren't lacking it. But I think that was kind of a worry at the beginning. But like I said, I just think it's become such a trend that oftentimes people are just kind of like hopping on the bandwagon a little bit when, influencers are promoting it and it's just like the cool thing to do to lose weight. And those are the people that are having more of the long-term struggles because they aren't putting in place any of the things that are going to help them keep that muscle mass, manage any stress, eat enough fiber or protein. So I would say if there's not education surrounding whoever's promoting it, and I think there needs to be some kind of vetting process in order for people to take it. That's my opinion. Maybe that's a hot take, but I think that in order to be on a GLP-1, you need to have some sort of communication with your doctor where you are either tracking your food, showing that you're eating enough protein, and you're on some kind of strength training program. I feel like that should be some kind of requirement there.
That would be a great system.
Like, oh, if only.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
You go first. You go first.
No, I was just saying, like, it being promoted initially, right, for clinically obese, insulin resistance, diabetes, PCOS, and people who already have that structured lifestyle and it's not really working. Love that for them. But when it's promoted to the typical Instagram, TikTok people saying, lean people who are looking for it for aesthetic reasons or people who are not ready to change their lifestyle, right? Shane actually used an analogy and I'm going to steal it from him. So if you have to, just say you have to weed your garden, like yesterday I was weeding and he used this analogy. And you go out and instead of like putting on your gloves and weeding the garden and just doing it, slow and steady, I just bring out a chainsaw. And I'm just like, woo! And I'm literally sitting here with a chainsaw, cutting my little weeds coming out of the soil. That's like grabbing a GLP-1 medication to just clear things out instead of just shaping and trimming your habits.
That's a pretty good analogy.
Like, it's unnecessary. There's going to be repercussions. It's going to make a mess. And then it's not going to fix it long term. Like, I'm still going to have to weed.
Yeah, that's very true. Man, I can't top that. I was going to say though, like, horror story wise on like things I've heard from friends and that I've actually been approached about, like when you have an Instagram following, is a problem I have with the influencer space is that like all of it's fake anyways. And so there's companies that are making kind of knockoff GLP-1s that will go to influencers with large followings and say, hey, we'll pay you this amount of money to say that you take this and market it to your audience. And the reality is they're not small sums of money that these people are being offered. Like I have friends who are fitness coaches that have gotten like, they have like 100,000 followers. They've been offered 10K to make one post. Yeah. Like it's insane. And so I think like also recognizing that like that's happening is really problematic because I do want these drugs in the hands of the right people. But this kind of takes it to another level where like, I mean, when we were in high school, we had social media and we were influenced, like, and back then it was like Tumblr and like anorexia, but now it's this, right? So like, I think it's just kind of shifted to where it can be very predatory. And that's where I have my hard line too. And I'm not against people using it, but I am against how it's being marketed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like you said, it's like getting any supplement. Unless it's third party tested or it's a reputable brand, you don't know what you're getting unless you know what you're getting. So there is a very fine line there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess we've cautioned people plenty, but I do want to kind of hear about another population that we've brought up a few times is the PCOS. We actually had a client who asked about this in my poll. And she had asked, like, how do GLP-1s affect PCOS and like hormonal health overall for people who struggle with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have PCOS myself, right? And luckily I am not quote unquote insulin resistant, so I wouldn't be someone who benefits from taking this, but somebody who they can't manage their blood sugar properly, right? It can lead to higher insulin levels then leads to higher fat storage, especially around your belly and your face. And then so the GLP-1 itself and PCOS, like why is it benefiting that population specifically, even if they're not obese or overweight or anything like that? It can help just regulate your blood sugar levels. And it also, when you do have spikes and drops in your blood sugar, you're going to have those cravings, which then the GLP-1 silences those cravings, reduces the overeating, and then in turn shows that fat loss. But in terms of like hormones itself, I haven't seen anything about it like regulating your menstrual cycle or improving ovulation or anything like that. And when you do have PCOS, it's obviously an ovulatory syndrome. You don't really ovulate, so it's not helping the period itself, the hormones itself, anything like that. Once again, it's just controlling your blood sugar, reducing those cravings, which then in turn causes weight loss. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think like on top of what you said, the only other thing I would add is that it just really helps reduce inflammation, which can be a really big symptom of someone who's experiencing PCOS. And there's studies that show now that it can, emphasis on can, help lower your androgen levels. So if you have PCOS, oftentimes you're going to experience higher androgen levels. And with that being said, if it's lowering them, that's going to be extremely helpful in PCOS alongside the reduction of inflammation and helping with the insulin resistance.
Gotcha. So I think just to kind of summarize, like what I'm hearing is that the impact on hormones that taking GLP-1s has is an indirect impact. So it's the GLP-1s acting on the mechanism that we talked about earlier, helping with weight management, insulin sensitivity, and that in turn is what creates a better internal environment for hormonal health. Is that right?
I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's important though. Like I wanted to like echo that really clearly because I think it's like a lot of studies will say, right, this is beneficial for that. And like we can often just like draw that line directly of like, okay, so this like acts on the hormones. And I think it's important to know that because it can empower people to be like, okay, well then if I just continue focusing on like, let's say they don't want to be on GLP-1s. I have those conversations a lot with people who like on discovery calls, they're like interested in our approach because they don't want to take that route, is a lot of the people that I get to talk to. And so like empowering them to realize that like working on regulating their blood sugar levels through balanced meals and their nutrition, it's like that can also have the same effect on their hormones. It may not be quite as rapid, but it is very sustainable as we've talked about. So
yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a case of like correlation versus causation, which we kind of just explained, but it's just understanding that every single headline or every single title of the study, it might say that the results did X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't mean it was a cause. It was probably just correlated, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So we all said we've either have had or have a client or multiple clients that are on a GLP-1 currently. Is that right? Okay. So I want to discuss like for those people who like are actively taking them, like what are some of the strategies that we've used with these types of clients versus like what's different, right? Like how do we pivot and adapt for someone who is really going to have that super low appetite, and like how do we coach them from where they are?
I would say biggest thing is the communication is going to be important no matter what, but communication here is going to be extremely important, especially as oftentimes the doctors will have them increase their dosage, which will oftentimes implicate further symptoms on a week to week basis. So, a friend that was on it, I have a client who just started it recently. So, we've only recently started working on things, but from a friend that was on it, as her dosage increased, so did her nausea, so did her food aversions. She felt extremely weak, extremely tired. And some of the things I know I will do moving forward with my client that's on it now is just kind of, like I said before, focusing on quality over quantity. So yes, you might not be able to get to the gym 4 or 5 days a week like we'd initially, planned for. But if we can get 2 to 3 quality sessions in and we can focus on actually building out the blood sugar balancing meals and having them ready to go, plugged in. And yeah, we might not eat as much as we were prior to you taking the GLP-1, but ensuring that we're getting enough of the nutrients that we still need. And like we said, the fiber that you still need to ensure digestion is still in an optimal spot. And just kind of monitoring biofeedback and symptoms as we do with every client, but even in a more detailed manner, because you got to focus on the metabolic adaptation portion of things too, because you're going to start to see clients who are on this that are extremely cold, fatigued, exhausted, maybe moody because they're under eating. And so ensuring that, okay, we're under eating, we can't be putting out but so much as well, because just making some adjustments to training and food is going to be the biggest thing, and focusing on the behavior change aspects and stress management aspects as well.
Yeah, I think, I hate to say it, but I don't really change the approach per se, right? We can repeat ourselves a million times, but like still prioritizing protein, still staying hydrated, still eating your fiber, still moving your body and listening to your body, managing stress, managing sleep. I think the only thing, like Rachel said, is just really being in tune with your biofeedback. If they're really, really, really not hungry, relying on liquid calories, right? Make sure you get in a smoothie, get in a protein shake, coconut water, Body Armor Prime, a sports drink. That way you can at least get in liquid calories through that way. Using just like higher caloric foods, like cooking with extra virgin olive oil and coconut oil, using nuts, seeds, just higher calorie, easy to eat foods when their appetite is low. That would be like the only biggest change that I do, is making sure that we are at least getting in enough calories to sustain their energy and strength throughout the day.
Yeah. That was kind of the lens I was looking at it through too, is like it's more of like a mental flexibility conversation, because a lot of the people that we work with, like telling someone to have higher caloric density options is like, I've never shopped for that in my life. I've never tried to do that in my life. And because they've spent, their entire teen and adult life looking for low calorie, 0 calorie, right? Sugar free. So basically training someone to mentally do the opposite. But then also I think expectation setting is another big piece, because we're expecting that this person won't be on the drug forever. So I'm kind of always, the thing that I would change in the approach is just anchoring even more into, this is what we're doing right now. This will change when we come off of the drug, right? So if we go to higher calorie options, really dense options, and for some people, like we'll kind of take a little bit more of a grazing approach versus like big meals, and not saying like no structure, but just like having smaller meals more frequently to manage appetite. And so similar to like when someone's in their like third trimester of pregnancy and their stomach is squished into their rib cage, it's like, yeah, we're gonna snack a little bit more and have less large meals. So it's kind of similar to that. But then like really anchoring in like that is also going to flip back once we get off the drug, and that might be kind of a night and day change. So we have to kind of be prepared for like having mental flexibility, like being able to make those changes to our routines on the fly and like be able to rock with it instead of like letting that change really throw us off. So I think that's like the mental side of it that that I would work on with someone as well?
Nailed it.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you guys kind of some closing questions here. You know, where do we think that GLP-1s then fit in the broader landscape of health and weight loss? Like, do we feel like, just like an opinion, like where they should be? Do we think that they should be a last resort? Do you think they should be a temporary tool or something else?
I think kind of like I said earlier, ideal situation I think would be a doctor would have you, if you're going to be on them, I think ideally you would have to build the habits that you need to maintain while you're on them prior to starting, and kind of show that, hey, I really am trying, or be someone who does have some kind of health implication like PCOS or diabetes or something that this is actually a necessity for. Or if you're extremely obese or whatever that may be, I think that it shouldn't be first line of defense here. I think we should kind of try to keep it as a last resort option. But yeah, just ensuring that people are building up these habits leading up to being on it, not something that, hey, I'm going to start eating protein now that I've started this, because that's a little bit more challenging to do when you're not hungry and you don't really eat that anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I definitely think they're tools, right? Not solutions. So for that population that they should be geared towards, right, they can give them that area to lose the initial weight and be in a better space to then do it on their own. It can also create space for reducing that food noise and allowing that mental space for you to focus on the habits, right? Focus on building those stress management techniques when you're not thinking about food all the time, or learning new, workout habits or things of that nature. But I do think that it is a temporary phase, right? And they can kind of just use it as a learning curve, right? Take control and then continue into the bigger picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely in agreement with both of you guys, just on the aspect of, you know, we're not going to be able to use those tools forever. Just like when people hire us, we don't want them here forever. As much as we would love to, like we need to kick you out eventually. And GLP-1s is the same. Like you probably won't want to be on that drug forever. And thankfully, like even medical providers like do have criteria for that too, right? So like if you hit a certain weight or BMI threshold, like then you're no longer covered by insurance. And then you have to come off unless you want to pay out of pocket, which we know that can add up very, very quickly. So I think just knowing that it is temporary, like educating you on what exactly goes into it so that you can make the best use of it if you do choose to use that tool. So yeah, I hopefully this helped you guys, like not you guys, the coaches, like you guys, the listeners, really just understand more about like what exactly it is. And also like hopefully lower some of the barrier to like having the conversation, let's say with your coach. Cause I know a lot of people are getting advertisements and social media influencing and like pressure from their doctor or from people in their life to explore this option. And they might already be working with us, but struggle to bring it up because they might assume that we're anti GLP-1 because of the nature of the work that we do. So hopefully this helps to lower the barrier to entry for just the conversation, as well as gives you some more tools to know that, you're not broken. You can use it, but you don't have to. So is there anything else that you guys would add to this conversation that you feel like we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I think, as everything else, everything in moderation, and what works for one person is not going to work for you. So just really educate yourself, pros, cons, risk, reward, and just really look, reflect on what you're currently doing. And if you really think it's necessary, then speak to your doctor and we'll be here to support you with or without.
Yeah, completely agreed. Just remember, like Julie said before, it's a tool. It's not an end game. So make sure you've built those habits that are going to sustain you through life, not just during the time you're utilizing the GLP-1.
Beautiful. All right. Well, that's going to be it for today. We hope that you guys found this conversation fruitful. Please let us know. You can send us a message at the Permanent Change Coaching Instagram or any of us individually in the DMs. We're always happy to chat here if you guys have follow-up questions. And we'll see you guys back here next week.